Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we will review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet Shekalim, pages 21 and 22, and the beginning of Masechet Yoma, pages 2 through 6, Bet through Vav. Shekalim 21. Sakin shenimtzeit ba'arba'asar shochet ba'miyad. If you were to find a knife on the 14th of Nisan in the vicinity of the Beit HaMikdash, you could immediately use it for the shechita, for the slaughter of the Korban Pesach. And you need not worry whether that knife was tameh, was impure, because you could rest assured that whoever lost it had brought it to Yerushalayim for the sake of using it for the shechita of his Pesach, and had already immersed it in the mikveh. So there's nothing for you to do other than use it. However, b'shlosha shona matbil. If you find it on the 13th of Nisan, which is a day before the slaughter of the Paschal lamb, then you would have to re-immerse the knife in the mikveh, because maybe the original owner didn't get around to doing it yet. Kupitz, however, a cleaver, whether it's the 13th or it's the 14th, you have to immerse the cleaver again, because the cleaver is not used to butcher the carcass of the Korban Pesach, since you're not allowed to break bones of the Korban Pesach. So it has no proper function on the 14th, and therefore if you find it on the 14th, it's possible that it was still tameh and had not yet been immersed by the original owner. However, if the 14th of Nisan falls out on a Saturday, on a Shabbat, then even the kupitz, even the cleaver, you could assume is tahor, and you need not re-immerse it in the mikveh, because although it's not going to be used that day, it's going to be used the next day for the butchering of the Korban Chagiga, which is going to be brought on Yom Tov. And since you can't immerse things on Shabbat and Yom Tov, it must have been done previously, and therefore you could assume that the kupitz at that point was tahor. Shekalim 22. The mitzvah to give machatzit shekel and the mitzvah to give bikurim only applies when the temple stands. And when the temple is destroyed, the mitzvah is no longer applicable. However, aval, maaser dagan, the tithing of grain, maaser behema, the tithing of animals, ubechorot, and firstlings, firstborn, noagim ben bifnei habayit ben shlo bifnei habayit, is applicable whether or not the temple stands. And so, even bizmanenu, even on our own time, the law of Maaser still holds true. Now, Masechet Yoma. Daf Bet. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afisha achert matkinelo shematamut ishto, that the rule is, the Kohen Gadol must serve on Yom Kippur and do the whole service himself. We need to have a functioning Kohen Gadol, and so everyone agrees that there is a deputy Kohen Gadol, a substitute, who is waiting in the wings to serve just in case the main Kohen Gadol is disqualified for whatever reason. However, Rabbi Yehuda adds that we will even supply the Kohen Gadol with an extra wife, just in case his wife dies. Why is this necessary? Because the Torah tells us, V'chiper ba'ado v'ad beito, he shall atone for himself and for his house, and his bait is a euphemism for his wife. So it is essential that the Kohen Gadol have a wife. Well, what if the first one died? So there's a second one waiting in the wings to satisfy. Although in Canaan Ladavar Sof, they disagree. If you're going to be concerned for the death of one person, you should be concerned for the death of two people, and you should have a third wife and a fourth wife and a fifth wife. In Ladavar Sof, there's no end to this matter. Therefore, we don't even let it get off the ground. There is no substitute wife. But rather, there's only a potential substitute Kohen Gadol, but we don't worry about anybody dying. Daf Gimel 3. Mish lo chag b'yom tov rishon shel chag, chogeg v'holech kol regel kulo, yom tov achron shel chag. If a person did not offer his chagiga sacrifice on the first day of Yom Tov of Sukkot, he has extra days with which to satisfy this obligation, tashlumin, supplementary days. And these supplementary days include not only days 2 through 7 of Sukkot, it also includes day 8, Shmini Atzeret. In this regard, Shmini Atzeret is an adjunct to Sukkot, the 8th day of one long holiday. However, in many other regards, Pazar Keshav, in 6 different respects, Shmini Atzeret is a regel bifnei atzmo, is a holiday unto itself with no bearing on, no connection to Sukkot. Daf Daled. Aaron Pirei Shiva v'Shimesh Yom Echad. Aaron was sequestered for 7 days during the Miluim, during the inaugural period of the tabernacle, and he then served on the 8th day, one day, the Yom HaShmini. Moshe masar lo kol shiva kedei lechancho ba'avoda. Moshe, for all 7 days, was preparing Aaron and teaching him the temple service. Afladorot, so too in subsequent generations, Kohen Gadol Poresh Shiva Mishamesh Yom Echad, the high priest will be sequestered for 7 days in advance of Yom Kippur, and then serve for that one day on Yom Kippur. And all that week long, there are 2 scholars who are the descendants, the intellectual descendants of Moshe, in that they are true Torah scholars and not Sadducees, are preparing this Kohen Gadol and teaching him the proper methods of service. L'chancho ba'avodah. Daf Hey 5. Ketzad Hilbishan. How were the original Kohanim dressed in their Kohanic garb, in their priestly vestments? So the Gemara then says, Ketzad Hilbishan, are you really asking how they were dressed? Maida hava hava. What was. Who cares? Meaning the past is the past, and we look to the future. But it doesn't really matter what occurred previously. Rather, the real question is, we want to know how it was done in the past so that we'll know how to dress the Kohanim at a future time when the temple is rebuilt. To this, the Gemara responds, Latid lavo nami. But even when it comes to the future, well, there'll be a resurrection of the dead, and Moses and Aaron and the Aaron's sons, all the Kohanim of the original tabernacle, will reemerge, and they'll let us know exactly what happened. We don't have to worry about it now because they'll be around in Tchias HaMeitim. To which the Gemara responds, rather, the reason why we want to know is because we're curious to correctly interpret the Bible, that we have an intellectual desire to understand the Torah in the proper way, and that requires knowing how the Kohanim were dressed. Daf Vav, page 6. Here the Gemara says that there's a difference in the timing of the ritual immersion depending upon what type of tumah you're trying to escape from. Hazav v'hazava v'hametzorav metzorat. So those who immerse in the daytime, put themselves in the mikveh in the daylight hours, include the male zav, the female zav, the male mitzorah, the female mitzorah, the person who had relations with a nida, and a person who contracted corpse impurity. However, there are those who have tefillatan balayla, a nighttime immersion. Who are they? The nida, the menstruant, the yoledet, and the birth mother. So depending upon what type of tumah you have, you go to the mikveh at a different hour of the day.